Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Savage Arms and the new 110 Ultralight. At about 6 pounds, the 110 Ultralight is designed to combat elevation and the elements while maintaining the performance of a factory blueprinted Savage 110 action. The carbon fiber wrapped stainless steel barrel makes it durable and lightweight. The rifle comes equipped with the Savage AccuFit technology, so that means it's adjustable and it comes in a variety of calibers. The 308, the 270, the 28 Nosler, the 280 Ackley Improved, the 30-06, and much more. If you want to find out more information about the 110 Ultralight, visit savagearms.com.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet chasing bear. As many of you would know, I love using mules to get into the backcountry. We do a lot of our hunting on mules, and I get a ton of questions about mules, like how do you get started? What makes a good mule? Where do you buy a mule? How much does a mule cost? What makes a mule better than a horse? Or why would people use them over a horse is a better question. Lloyd Hawley is a national expert on mules. He's been raising, training, selling, riding mules for over 30 years, and he is an expert. We have a really good conversation that gets into the nuts and bolts of mules. And if you listen to this whole thing through its entirety, you'll know more about mules than most people do. And so this can be used as a resource for you if you're interested in getting in mules or just want to know some good intel on an iconic equine animal. Be sure to check out W Hunting Supply for all of your hound hunting, dog hunting needs. Whether it's Garmin products, whether it's collars and leashes, whether it's custom apparel. W Hunting Supply is known for their customer service. They're known for their dedication to the hound sports, and they're a family-owned and operated business. My friend Buddy Woodbury and his family run the business, and they are experts in their field. Check out W Hunting Supply for anything you need that has to do with dogs. So we're at the Hawleywoods Mule Farm. I'm here with Mr. Lloyd Hawley, and I got Colby the Bear Tech Moorhead with me.
Yep.
It's a beautiful June morning, isn't it, Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, it is. We've been fortunate in some ways. Had a lot of rain this year. In other ways, rain always delays cutting hay, first cutting.
Yeah.
But it helps out later on in hot summer.
Yes. Well, it's kind of turned summertime on us. It's been pretty hot, but I guess that's what it's supposed to do in late June in Arkansas.
Well, I'm no old timer, but it's the wettest spring I can remember.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mr. Lloyd, I've got a ton of questions for you. So you have been in the mule business for how long?
33 years.
33 years. Mm-hmm. And tell me, just kind of give me an overview of what you do with Hawleywoods Mule Farms.
Well, I could say starting from the beginning, I grew up on horses, and I was born and raised here in Prairie Grove, Arkansas, except in 3 years when we moved to Idaho when I was in the first, second, third grade. And my dad and uncle caught wild mustangs out of the Hawaii Mountains near the Snake River. And we broke them and sold them for extra money, And that's where I learned to ride, with those mustangs. And we'd put about 30 days of training on them and then sell them.
Really? So that's what your family did for the 3 years there in Idaho, or did y'all go up there and catch them and bring them back here?
No, we lived there.
Okay.
But just on that note, we found out in our experience, and we trained a bunch of them, was that if they got to be 4 years old, wasn't too late to train them, but it was a lot harder. You need to train them when they're 2 and 3 year olds. We tried several of the 4 and 5, 6 year olds, and in time they might have come around, but they weren't quick learners. But I got throwed up, without exaggerating, probably 500 times.
Wow.
But we rode a lot of bareback. We had railroad track riding, and that's all. Me and I had a first cousin, same age, and that's all we did summers after and before school, and just ride those Mustangs. And my dad and my uncle had a 300, not a 300, but a 300 by 150 arena, if you will, a big pen, and then a couple of smaller ones, and that's where we started them all. And of course, we did not know about horse whisperer or any of that stuff, but we learned a few things, and we did a lot of the same things, and just didn't call them that. But our theory was to get them started, and we snubbed them up to a pony horse, and away we went.
Yeah.
And
so you'd put them with a broke horse, and then time to the broke horse.
Yes.
And now just to lead them around to desensitize them, or you'd ride them.
We rode them.
You'd have somebody on the.
Yeah, they didn't buck near as hard, but they'd sure fight it. They had to have a pretty tough rider on the pony horse because the Mustang would be up in the saddle a lot of times.
I see.
And so
you learned to not be afraid of a bucking equine animal.
No, not at that point. That was of course a long time ago. But we just get back up and go again,
Yeah.
And pretty soon it's like round pen training. Now we would take my cousin and I. We'd get on one that was just 30 days broke and get a new load in. And we just run them round and round and round and round, reach over and pet them, round and round and round. And pretty soon they just let you pet them,
Yeah. And so take me from there to how you got into mules.
Well, we moved back to Arkansas and have been here ever since, but we always had horses. And but for some reason, one reason was I'd always wanted a pair of mules for driving, working team.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about riding them at that point. But,
for pulling a wagon or pulling logs or something.
Cart or anything. But my one grandfather used mules a lot, and I liked them, and I always wanted. So after I got married and we bought some horses, and the whole family went trail riding. But I found this pair of mules, and about 14.2, and I bought them, and then I bought
that's their height.
Yes,
14.2. Yeah.
And I bought a whole bunch of horse-drawn equipment to work them with. Of course, it was a lot of trouble but it was what I wanted to do. But being riders, and the oldest son being about 12 years old at that time, we hadn't broke to ride in no time.
Mm.
And then we found out, just from personal experience, that on a trail riding, that they were superior to the horses on the average. You can't say blanket every mule's better than every horse or vice versa, but
Right.
but anyway, they were much more sure-footed and much more of a self-preservationist type animal. And whereas a horse will panic a lot quicker than a mule and rear up or fall over.
Yeah.
I remember one time I got off the trail, and it was about 30 riders at Devil's Den, and there's pretty rocky trails, and they're looking nothing but the feet. And the horse pretty much knew where his front feet was, but basically the back feet just fall wherever they were.
I see.
And here comes a mule along, and he's picking between the rocks and just staying, not near as much chance of losing his balance, And the rougher and steeper it got, the better the mule shines over the horse.
I see. That's the best description of the sure-footedness of a mule that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've experienced what you're saying, but you saying that a horse knows where his front feet are, but his back feet just going wherever. Where a mule is he's picking up all his feet and putting them right where he wants them.
Well, one thing, and I can't prove it scientifically, but I've been told, and I think so from my experience, is that a mule can see his back feet and a horse can't.
Okay.
Because of the positioning of the eyes.
Mm.
The eyes tell you a lot on an animal, where they're set on the head. And see, of course, we're predators, and our vision comes together pretty quickly.
Right.
And prey animals, their vision does not. They're focused on half a mile away or quarter mile or whatever. And as you get closer to an object, and this is another good point. A lot of people can't figure out why a mule spooks at a stump or a rock or a hole in the ground or something when it's not moving or anything. Well, they can't focus on it. It's just a reason.
Okay.
Where the right eye vision meets the left eye vision, that's your focal point. And on a horse or a mule, it's different, but 6 or 8 or 10 foot before it crosses.
Yeah.
Because being a prey animal, having to deal with something to run, get away, their vision's further out.
I see. So you, by owning these mules, having grown up your whole life with horses, and then you got these mules, and you saw for yourself that they were in the woods on a trail ride in a lot of functional ways as a saddle animal. You felt like they were superior to a horse, and so that fueled your desire to get more into them, I guess.
Well, partly, and another thing a mule does, of course, there's in this stuff you say has exceptions, but basically a mule does not rear up, does not get off the front end, does not throw their head. If you notice a horse starts getting nervous about something, he starts fidgeting and jumping off his front feet and then throwing his head up and then maybe rear up and maybe fall over.
Okay.
And you just rarely see a mule do that. So
okay,
that's another reason it makes them more sure-footed, and another reason that it makes the rider more confident.
Yeah.
You get a little nervous if you weren't a real good experienced rider and your horse starts doing all that bouncing up and down. And
is that the way a lot of horse wrecks happen? Is a horse rearing up on its front end? I mean, that's kind of like the classic Western scene, is this horse rearing up on its front end. I mean, is that how, I guess?
Well, this more, that's part of it, but it's more to the point that in a moment of crisis, a horse doesn't care if it hurts you or him or if he goes over the cliff or what, he's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And the mule being the more self-preservationist, not that they can't run away also, but they're saying, oh, it's a long ways down there, I'm going to stay on the trail.
Yeah.
That kind of a situation. And
why do you think that is? It's I guess to even take it back to the very basics, a mule, and most people would know this, but a mule is the cross between a male donkey and a female horse. So a jack donkey and a mare horse. So why do you think a mule is naturally more self-preserving than a horse?
Because he's half donkey or more.
And a donkey's very self-protecting. Is that correct?
Well, it says, self-preservation.
Yeah. Self-preservation.
But I tell people all the time if they want to learn how to ride a mule is to buy them a donkey and try to train the donkey. And then they can more clearly, better evaluate their mule and understand it. Because 90% of the people or more just relate to the horse side of the mule. Not criticizing them, but because so many people haven't had a donkey or anything to do with them. So they don't have a clue. They just think their mule's having an off day. When if you understand the donkey side of it, you say, no, that's the donkey coming out in him.
Yeah.
So you can deal with them and train them a lot better if you understand. In my opinion, I think they're 55% donkey.
Yeah. So what would be those characteristics? How would you describe those? Because you know what I kind of want to do is describe why would somebody want a mule. That's the question I get, Mr. Lloyd, with people that are considering, and for our context, these guys are considering how to get into the backcountry, how to pack in, how to stay longer, and they're not just joyriding. They're trying to use these animals, and they ask me, why would I get a mule over a horse? And I think you've described in one way, like the surefootedness and the safety, the potential safety of a good mule, and not, like you said, there's going to be some mules that are dangerous as they can be just because they're not trained, they're not broke, they're not good animals.
For every horse story you could tell me the mules had, I could tell you 10 more for horses had,
Okay.
Because you see a lot of people say, oh, don't ride a mule. Oh, Uncle so-and-so fell off of him and broke his neck and one of them bucked around. Well, so do horses,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a minor part. But you take like along with self-preservation deal, if you're doing round pen work with your mule, and if you put a horse in a round pen, last year I worked a 3-year-old horse for a friend of mine in a round pen, and I took a halter and the lead rope and let him in the round pen and turned him loose. And I just shook my halter, and he must have galloped 20 rounds around that round pen before he ever stopped. And then I shake it again, and it's typical, especially a done broke one. But to take a mule, you get in there and most of them wouldn't even go if you shake the halter,
Yeah, I see.
You got to get after them, make them walk, and you really got to get after them to make them canter in the round pen.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like I tell people, after the second trip around the round pen, they've seen everything out there, What more reason could you want me to be out here?
Yeah. So the reaction of that horse was more extreme than the reaction of the mule.
Yes.
Is that a way to describe what you're saying?
Well, that's part of it. They're more of a fast twitch muscle animal, and donkeys are slow twitch muscle animals, kind of like a 100-yard sprinter and a mile distance runner,
Yeah.
You see those guys on the track running a mile or 800 meters or whatever. They're little skinny dudes, don't have any extra weight, no muscle mass on them to build up heat. Same with the horses. They can Arab runs a long ways. He's not got the big quarter horse hip on him.
Yeah. So take me into take me into how you got into training them and selling them, and you made this a lifestyle or a career, if I could say that.
Well, after I bought the team, my son and I started riding them on trail rides, and one day we were on a trail ride, and somebody says, well, you're going to the mule show up at such and such town, in Missouri. We said, a mule show? What's that? And they told us, well, it's just like a horse show, only you do it with mules. Same things. Generally, they have more fun events than the horse shows do, average horse show. So we my son and I loaded our mules up, and we went up there. And we said, "Where do you have to register?" And so they had a class list there at the secretary's desk, and we looked down through there, and we didn't hardly know what any of those things were. That they were running the classes, but we entered every one of them. And of course, our mules were untrained, and they got a little bit unruly with us because we kept pushing them for speed in different events, and we did Western Pleasure and barrel race, and everything in between, you know.
Okay.
But we had more fun than you can imagine, and the first question we had was, "Where's the next show?" And in the meantime, we started training our mules at home to get ready for the show. So we did that for a while, and then I realized that it's not going to work. These mules are plow mules, not drafty, but harness type mules. They're not speed mules, and so on and so forth. So I've always been one to try to have the best I could in whatever it is. And so I bought two back in 1980s, early 80s. I bought two mules and give $5,000 a piece for them. But we started winning. They were mules I recognized had the ability, but they didn't. The rider did not have the ability to finish fine-tuning them for training. But then we started winning, and then people wanted to buy our mules.
Oh, okay.
So I've always been one, if the price is right, it's for sale. And so I sold the wife's mule all the time.
Yeah.
The kids' mules.
Yeah.
My daughter, she had this good mule, and I left it up to her when she wanted to sell it. And she won all kinds of stuff with him to shows for years. When she started riding when she was 9, and then she picked out this. At this point, was a little boy that was trying to compete at the mule shows, and his mule wasn't near good enough, and he was crying, and so my daughter said, "Dad, when I get ready to sell old Blue, I want that little boy to have him." So we've become good friends with him, and it was John Higgins and his son, John Jr., that they've done really quite well. And anyway, then that blossomed out to where at one point there we were doing 25 shows a year.
Okay. You were competing.
Yes.
Yeah. But you were also selling mules. So you were gathering up mules and trying to find the best ones.
Yeah, I didn't get purposely in what you might call the, quote, trading business. It just kind of sucked me in.
It just kind of happened on its own.
I just...
And then your last name was Hawley, and so you had the perfect marketing, Hawleywoods.
Yes. Hawleywoods.
Hawleywoods.
Yeah, a lot of people think I took that after Hollywood, California, but I didn't.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed it.
My sister married a guy with the last name Woods.
Okay.
And we, at one point, we bought some registered cattle together, and we had to have a prefix to put on their name.
Yeah.
So we said, "It's Hawleywoods." Letter for letter, you know.
You know, I've drove by this place for years and years before I had met you, and I was just like, this guy's a marketing genius. Hawleywoods.
Yeah. Well, it's worked to our advantage, certainly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I kept training mules and get them trained. I just was training one, so I'd have one to ride, and then get to a certain point, and somebody'd buy it, and I'd get another one, and pretty soon I was in the mule business.
Yeah.
At one point, at the peak of my operations, we had, for 3 or 4 years, we had over 100 head.
Wow.
Horses, mules, donkeys. And we stood 3 jacks and bred around 200 mares a year.
Wow. So then you weren't selling, well, you would have been selling finished mules, but you were also selling colts.
Yeah, at that point, I don't consider myself ever being in the trading business, but I was in the marketing and resale, been a total integrated program, you know, with having the mares, raising the colts, standing the jack, breaking the colts to ride, we're doing outside meals, train. We shipped out the semen in equitainers all over the country.
Really? So you had jacks that were that in demand
Yeah.
that you were selling semen across the country?
Yep.
Now, what makes man? That's what I remember from 20 years ago. We lived in Prairie Grove for a time, so I just was around. Man, those big old mammoth jacks or something. And for people that are listening, if you've never seen a picture of a mammoth jack, go type that in the internet. They're pretty incredible animals. You had some good ones, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I bought what I thought was a good one, and he was a good jack. Colonel Ben called him. And
Colonel Ben.
He was a gated jack, about 54 inches, real clean boned, wide between the hocks, and good head, and I mean without a smaller head and ear, and not too small. But I realized for trail riding, he was great. Every one of his colts moved out. I mean, most of them had some type of gait to them or were easy moving. But then I realized I had all those good mares I was breeding to, and it just wasn't quite. I'd getting a lot of second, third places, but it wasn't getting an outstanding mule to halter to win with. So that's when I started looking for another jack. And I bought in a whole lot better jack, and I started having world champions at halter.
Tell me what that means, world champion at halter.
Well, it's certain, just like quarter horses has their world show every year. It's the peak of the shows. Supposedly the best show in the nation, you know.
Okay.
Of course, then there's national level shows.
Now, what events are these animals competing in that would make them world champion?
Well, like that, for instance, what you're talking about there would just be world champion halter mule.
That's totally just off looks?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there would be, most shows are combined, like do the speed events in one category divided up in divisions. And so you'd have like 6 or 7 divisional world champion winners. And then you'd have the one high point over the whole show.
Okay.
But we start off though with just a little fun play days. We do the egg and spoon and sack race and bareback switch and all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah. We got a hay truck coming by us. So these so that's good information. So a halter mule, that would just be totally going off aesthetics of a mule. What so, you know, I've had mules now for 5 years, and I mean I know what I think looks good in a mule, and I know what good feet are. You know, what makes a world champion halter mule?
A halter conformation would be the same as any breed of animals. You decide what's the most desirable way to have us. You have a model mule, in other words, to compare everything against. And, of course, not having dairy and beef and horses, they have a painting, a picture, or drawing of the ideal type horse or cow.
Right.
Mules haven't done that. By the mere fact that 90% of your mule riders are rebels, renegades, you know, kind of independent, you know, and don't like to be told what to do and all that stuff. And to some extent, you've got to have some of that attitude to deal with your mule, because they'll put it back in your face. If you don't have some bit of aggressiveness to you, then they'll take advantage of you. And not that you can't get a lot done with them, but you've got to cut a lot of compromising. And 80 or 90% of the people that own mules have never made them do anything. They've trained them to do this and that, but compromise with it. If it gets too much, we can't handle it, then they'll work them some way else.
Yeah.
It's like I was on a trail ride one time, and this lady had this horse that everybody had been bragging on how good he was. Well, we come to this little, wasn't even a creek or stream, it was just a wide ditch that had the water running in it. And everybody, there was about 20 on the ride, and everybody's animals just went right across it except hers. And he just come right up there and right what she should have, she spurred him just a little bit or tapped him on the butt with the reins or whatever, he went right across, but she didn't. she'd encourage him right up to the point he got there, and then she'd take all the pressure off. So he'd just turn around and walk. He wasn't trying to run away or anything. She'd get him back over there. Finally, she got off and led him across the water. Of course, got her boots above her boots, you know. Well, she got him across the water all right, but wasn't anyway. The horse won. She didn't teach him anything.
Right. Yeah. So, like with going back to the looks of a mule. Okay, so you said because mule people are the way they are, which I want to get back to because I've heard other people say that, and I'm trying to figure out why I like mules. So this may tell me something about myself that I don't know.
Well,
and why Colby likes mules.
Yeah.
But you, now I know Colby's a rebel, so we already know that. Yeah, you missed it. He said that mule people are usually rebels at heart.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Renegades.
Yeah, they got to have it in them to be able to deal with their animal. So, what characteristics are you looking for though? I mean, like with height or with build or with. I mean, like, can you describe the perfect mule for you? Even just for you, what's a perfect mule in terms of height, color, build?
I like for myself, personally, I like a 14.2 animal.
14.2.
That rides 14.2.
How many inches is that?
That's 58 inches.
58 inches to the withers,
yes.
Which is where the hair of the mane meets the back.
Basically, yes. The highest point of the withers. The scapula at the highest point of it, measured from the ground. But some animals ride bigger than others. I rode a lot of 54, 55, 56-inch mules that rode just as big as a 58.
I see.
And it may be a little hard to explain, but they're more hard to go. They just rode bigger.
Yeah.
And I've had some 15.2 mules. Generally, the bigger they get, the lazier they get, the harder it is for them to move.
Yeah.
And they get more drafty, if you will.
Yes.
The more, I always like the little refinement, the little smoothness to my mules. And the bigger you get them, the harder it is to get that.
Mm.
And it's a shame that in the last 10 years, more and more of the donkey breeders are breeding for size. You know,
okay.
It's not how he looks. Is he 15 hands tall, or is he 16 hands tall, or is he 17 hands tall? In the donkeys I'm talking about. Well, if you breed to one of those mammoth jacks, you're going to get a colt resembles them. You're going to get the big mule that's on average is lazy and uncoordinated and looks like it was put together by a committee. And so, you know, you just not my type of mule. But you take the length of the neck, where the eyes sit on the mule, the type of ear they have, how much withers they have or don't have. Probably 75% of your mules are like a donkey. They have a straight back.
Yeah.
Someone as straight as a string, but they don't have any shoulder muscle to hold your saddle back.
Okay.
So I like a mule with a little shoulder to him.
Okay.
And then if you get want your legs, all four squared up with your legs. And the front legs are usually pretty square on a mule, but the back ones are not. Take the hip structure of a donkey, it's back. When they stand it, what they call camp out in the rear end, they stand with their feet back.
Okay, like out wide?
Well, generally wider than a normal stance, yes.
Okay.
More like they're propping up yourself so they don't fall down.
I see.
And some of them pass this on to the mule. And if you ever recognize what it is, you put, watched it all my life. They take three or 4 or 10 mules running around the pasture. You could really tell it then. Because their legs are back and they can't get collected.
Okay.
Like a horse. So they don't, it's running like a donkey, that little short gait to have, you know, when they're running a donkey.
Okay.
They're camped out in the rear, most of them, and they don't take longer strides.
Okay.
Take a reining horse or a cutting horse, barrel horse, anything.
Yeah.
To extra speed in the movements, they have to be collected to do it properly. Take change the leads. If you're galloping a mule around the arena and you take him across the middle and ask him to change leads, he's got to get collected to do that. And if he's camped out in the rear end, it's almost impossible.
I see.
They got to drop down to a trot, one trot, change leads, and then go back into a canter.
So they need that wide stance to be able to do that, or that, or
well, not so much a wide stance.
or
No,
wider.
That's just a standing. They need their whole hip structure to turn like this, so they can get their rear feet up under them. They might in a gallop, a mule might overstride, say 2 feet, whereas a horse overstride maybe 10. So they got to be the structure limits and a lot of these movements. If you're just trail riding the average mule, you don't notice them. They don't affect your trail riding that you know of, that you can tell. But if you go try and do something with them and understand what makes them move this way or try to make them move that way, and every animal I've ever rode's been right or left-handed, so you've got to learn which one is their favorite leg and how to make them work on the other one.
In general, if we're again going back to this question of mules and horses, like tell me if this is right. This is the way that I've described it in the past. Is a horse is probably going to be maybe faster and maybe a little bit smoother ride than a mule, but a mule is going to be safer, more sure-footed, and do better in rougher country. Is that a fair assessment?
Excepting that you're talking about going to be a better ride, I disagree with that.
Okay.
Because if you watch a horse walk, they do right front, left rear on the ground to walk. Then you do left front, right rear. Well, it's the same length of stride on each movement, each cycle, but a mule will have a little more of a pace. It's the way his feet go. Just moves a little bit different. It's not much, but it doesn't take much to make a difference in the ride. Gives you a lot better ride than a horse.
Oh, really? So you think a mule can have a smoother, just walking ride than a horse?
Oh, nearly every time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Huh.
And then you got to watch when you're breeding mules. Say if you're picking a brood mare, you'd want one with a long slope to the shoulder because the donkey is steep-shouldered. And that's one reason they can't extend.
I see.
But on the other hand, it's the donkey's gait, not these big jacks and stuff, but an average size 54-inch the donkey. The gait that they have is really more favorable to packing.
A donkey is.
Yeah, and then you move up to a mule, and donkey's better than a mule, and a mule's better than a horse. And because the movement is so smoother, it doesn't ruffle the pack,
Okay.
And
that's great info right there. So, because of the structure and straightness of their back, their stride. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, the movement.
Their movement. That's why they're great pack animals, because it's not jostling the pack.
Yeah, that's part of it. The other reason they make good pack animals is they're natural-born followers.
Okay.
If you're on a trail ride, you go to pay attention when people go to leave. They don't want to be first. They'll follow you anywhere, but it takes a little better trained, a little more independent mule to want to be out in front.
Okay. That even more than a horse?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Because they're half donkey.
And a donkey...
It's a born follower.
Okay.
You can watch it. I used to have 20 jennies out there in that pasture, one pasture. And I had a nice water trough there for them. And they had 3 dust bowls if there's not a hole in the ground where they can get out and roll or make one.
Yeah.
And then you could see them, that was their pattern. They had a pattern every day. They go to one dust bowl, roll, and then they'd graze. And then in single file, they go to the water trough. And then single file, they go to the next dust bowl. They didn't. Horses don't tend to do that. They'll scatter around. Maybe some of them kicks up, runs around. Donkeys are just one after the other.
So that's why they make good trail animals for packing gear.
Yeah, that's one of the major points. Of course, you got to live with the straight backness, and sometimes it's harder to get the pack to hold on there.
Okay, so the straight backness doesn't help the pack hold on.
No.
It's just the way the animal moves.
Well, that's their instinct to follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, see, everybody, a lot of people that don't know thinks, hey, look, here's a guy riding his horse, leading the pack mule string, and they don't even have them tied together. They're just on their own, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They jump in and follow. They don't pass, they just follow.
Yeah. Interesting. So you had all these jacks, all these mares. What kind of people buy a high dollar mule? Is that a fair question? I mean, you were selling mules all over the country. Is that right?
Yes. I never really thought about it, why they would, what type of person. One type of person.
I mean, are they mule people or are they horse people that want just like this one really nice animal that they're willing to pay a lot for? Or is it, I mean, like, do most people that have mules, that's all they have? Or do a lot of horse people probably have maybe one mule for whatever reason? I mean, I was just trying to get a feel for, because you sold some high dollar mules over the years. I mean, you're making a living selling.
Yeah, I was not comparing to today's market, but I sold a lot of high dollar mules. But I guess 2 or 3 different types of people. One would be that person that wants to have something different to show off, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't want it just to be different. It's going to want it to be well trained too.
Yeah.
And then, you see a lot of them across the country. You have a group, competitors or riders, like ropers, say, steer ropers. You go and maybe there'll be 20 teams of horses, and then there'll be a couple of mules come out there and run, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy's maybe got 3 horses he's riding, but he also rides that mule.
Yeah.
And
just something different.
And then some of them won't have that very best. And I had more than one person call me and say, Lord, I want to buy the best mule in the United States. Money's no object. But then at the same time, maybe
sounds like Colby.
Yeah. Is that right, Colby?
Let's line them up.
That's like I had a guy from Idaho come one time and bought a trailer over Tulsa, and then he came and bought 3 mules from me, tacked up, pack tack, and
You sold him everything.
everything. He didn't have a brush, but he was a guy maybe 30 years old and an avid big game hunter. Lived in Idaho, and the year before he'd killed all 5 big game animals, including the mountain goat.
In Idaho.
And he wasn't about your size guy, and he's lost 17 pounds while he was hunting that goat. Because you could only pack in what you could pack on your back.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say it put that way, but that's the way he did it. And after that, he said, I got to have me a mule. So he came and
Drove all the way down here from Idaho.
And I had about 7 or 8 mules caught that I thought would work for him. I had them tied around the fence. So I went down and told him about each and every one of them. And he walked back a couple of times. He said, I'll take this one, that one. And all the attackers slowed him up. And I said, well, we better ride him.
You pulled out the cash register. Ching, 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 ching.
Well, I said, we better go ride and check them out. You might decide you don't like
He
them.
didn't even want to ride them.
No. He said, why should I want to ride them, Lloyd? You told me what kind of mules they were, and I believe you.
He trusted you.
And so he said, I don't need to ride them. Well, it wasn't mules I was worried about. It was him.
Yeah.
Because when I asked him how much riding experience he'd had, and he told me that he thought he could remember riding a pony ride in the circus one time when his mother took him to the circus. I mean, nothing. So I talked to him and I said, well, look, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Why don't you're going to have to stay overnight anyway. Why don't you we go a little trail ride on the mountain tomorrow, and just for old time's sake, you know. Well, okay. And so by the time we got top of the mountain, he was smart enough to realize that he needed some assistance.
Yeah.
I mean, it did not come with an owner's manual.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was that type of guy, you know. He said, I'll just, whatever it is, I'll just get the owner's manual and my ability and figure it out.
Yeah.
I said, you can't do that with mules.
You know, when I first got mules, I wasn't quite like that, but I quickly realized that buying a animal, especially if you're working in these lower end mule markets where you don't know what you're getting, it's not like buying a 4-wheeler.
No.
You don't just go, oh, okay, a broke mule. You know, get on Craigslist and see broke mule for sale,
Yeah.
$1,200.
Or green broke.
Or you think you're just going to get on that animal and just have no trouble and ride all over the country. That is not the case. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I hear people that have questions with is they don't understand that transition from zero to functional and, inside of being able to ride a mule. Because even if you have a really well-trained mule, he'll take advantage of an inexperienced rider, will he not?
A lot of times it will.
Let's pull that down just a little bit more. There you go. There you go. Perfect.
A lot of times that is the case, but the more you learn about, the more you learn about mules, what makes them tick and how to train them and proper equipment and stuff, but the more you realize how little people know about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then if you have any question about there being a higher being, you could just watch some of these greenhorns ride, and they don't get killed, you know. I figure somebody's got to be looking after that dude. He could have had 10 of those one day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's a high end mule in today's market? Like what would
Well, there's going to be several mules due to Jake Clark sale mainly, but they're selling a lot of them, both public and private, for $10,000 to $25,000.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon anymore today. I mean, I remember the one mule I sold for $25,000. She was way far above than this number 2 mule might have been a $10,000 mule, you know. But it's not that way. And another reason they're getting higher priced mules is because the people are breeding better mules, but not only better looking, but better capabilities to do some performance. And then the other thing is to get the trainers are more watching the clinicians, you know, and learning what the horse people have been doing for years and how to apply it to their mules.
Yeah.
And then,
So mule trainers are getting better.
yes, more. I mean, they're educating the average rider.
Yeah.
A lot of more and more riders, trail riders, so to speak, are going to these clinics and learning, hopefully one-on-one, more what to do. It's still a long ways from being an accomplished rider just in one session or two. I went, buddy of mine, back in the day when John Lyons was the main horse whisperer around, and he had a 5-day clinic over at Oklahoma. And a friend of mine wanted me to go over there and watch him. And after 5 days, the friend was amazed. He told me, back up a little bit, he told me about 6 months before that he wanted me to help him become a better mule rider, because he had trail rides all the time. He said, I want my mule to do better than the average trail rider. So I worked with him with a bunch of stuff. And one thing I worked with him on was getting his mule to do a turnaround. And he picked up on it pretty quick. One reason because his mule was handy. And he realized it, which I saw right away, but he realized it after the third day. He said, Lord, he's taken 3 days to teach those people to turn around, and you taught me in 15 minutes. I said, well, he's making money at it. It's how he makes his living.
He's got to milk this out. He can't give all the good stuff away the first day.
Exactly.
Now tell me what you mean by a turnaround. I mean, just being in the middle of a trail and get them to spin 360 degrees?
Well, see, there again, you're relating it to trail riding mule, and it's not as important most of the time, but you don't want them to just walk around in a circle. You want them to cross over, and it applies to trail riding too if you've got a tight situation. You want them to cross over and cross over on their back legs.
Okay.
Not rear up, but it takes a lot less time if you go to a circle like this or if you do a rollback.
Okay.
And
I'm going to have to bring my mule over here because you're talking about a lot of stuff I don't know of. I just know how to get on one and make it go wherever you need it to go.
Mm-hmm. We can do that.
and not fall off.
I've got a mule out here now that's not finished, but she knows enough I can show you what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. What would you what advice would you give somebody that was wanting to buy a mule that didn't know equine animals much? What advice would you give them?
First, try to find somebody that's reputable, that'd be as honest. The thing I found through the years is not so much what people tell you that people that are selling mules. It's not so much what they tell you; it's what they don't tell you.
Right.
That's what'll get you hurt. And in my way of thinking, that's the same as lying.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you mean.
I mean, if you come up to me and say, I want to buy this mule, and you got some questions, does he kick, or does he do this, or does he do that? He says, no, and so you get him home, he does something different, So you call the guy back and say, well, you never told me that he would run over you. Well, you didn't ever ask me.
Yes.
Well, that's no excuse. That's just cop out and just a plain liar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That you described that so well, and I'm glad to hear you describe it that way, because I said the other day that being a mule guy, a mule salesman, it'd be hard to be successful and be completely honest because almost everyone is going to have some quirk.
Yes.
Every animal that I've ever bought, like right now, my mule that I love so much, I guess she's coming on 5, and I mean, you couldn't pay me enough money to sell her. If I was trying to sell her though for a high dollar, I mean, she, fidgets when you're putting the saddle on her. She, she's got quirks.
Sure.
And so but she's never bucked me off. She's never kicked. She's never done anything real crazy. I mean, I could show you pictures. I could tell you the truth. But then when you got on her, you'd be like, man, this mule's kind of fidgety when it's nervous and kind of cold-backed a little bit, a few little things.
Everybody has a different riding ability.
Yeah.
It's one thing that's helped me through the years is to figure out what level these people are on and match them with the mule that could handle that.
Yeah.
And some of them are better riders than they think they are, and some of them are scared to death,
Yeah. Yeah.
But and some of them realize that a lot of guys, and that goes kind of along with being independent and more of a rebel with mules. A lot of guys don't want to take any training, because they're embarrassed to do it. But they don't mind. A lot of them don't mind if their wife does it, but
they let their wife go to training, but they don't want to go.
Couldn't be that hard,
Yeah.
But I had a couple come from Wichita Falls, Texas. They bought 2 mules from me, and the woman was about 55 years old. She said, Lord, I rode some when I was a kid. but I haven't ridden in 20 years. Said, my husband's been paying for me to do riding lessons, but they're English lessons. And she said, I need some Western riding lessons. So we were out there in the round pen, and I started coaching her. Her husband was telling her to do this and that, and I said, wait a minute, Bill, it can only be one teacher. If you want to tell her what to do, I'll go to the house. If you want me to tell her what to do, then you need to shut up or you go to the house.
Yeah. Is this part of the world kind of the mule epicenter of the country?
Yes.
Okay. Because I've been saying that for years. I'm glad that you verified that for me.
Not quite as much as it used to be, but still it is. Take like Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, particularly, is a hot spot for mules. But then you see a lot of mules, just numbers, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. They'll have a lot of mules, but not necessarily high quality, high trained mules.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So out west, a lot of these outfitters and different groups have mules. They're buying those mules from here a lot of times. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I know there's one guy that I know of here in Arkansas that trains mules all year long and then takes them out to these live auctions out in Idaho and gets pretty high dollar for his mules out there in the live auctions. Is that kind of because that's what I've seen is that a lot of those Western guys are coming back here to buy mules, the Ozarks and well, not just the Ozarks, but the states you said.
I don't necessarily want to plug Jake Clark, but he was smarter than the rest of us. Not that I wanted to do it, but he'd been in buying and selling mules all of his life, and he's a guy that's my age. And he figured out, hey, if we just do better quality mules, people figure it out and come buy them, especially in the West. And
so his mules have to be vetted before they can be sold at his.
Well, not only that, but they first have to pass a physical inspection and be a nice looking mule, and then they have to have certain qualities. And he sets up a obstacle course, if you will.
Yeah.
At his place, and they have to go through all of that before they can qualify to go to the sale.
Okay.
And it'll be everything you can't think of, all the stuff he has for them to do. In other words, if they could go to his trail course, they got to be pretty well broke.
Yeah. Could an average mule that I'd be riding make it through that trail course?
With proper training. But in the first place, people that are going to pay that lot of money like that for those mules, they don't want to train them. They don't know how, and they don't want to. They want to step on them and have them do what they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Not realizing that, I ask people a lot of times, they say, well, you're a trainer. No, I'm not. I'm a rider. Anytime you touch your animal, you're training it.
Right.
You're a trainer whether you like it or not, good or bad.
Yes. Yeah.
I sold a fancy mule to a banker one time for a lot of money, and he called me back in about 2 weeks, and he said, well, I need to bring that mule back over there. I can't get on her. So I thought, well, okay. So he brought her over, and she fidgeted a little bit when I got on her, but she stood fine, and he said she's starting to get away from me when I get in the saddle. I said, well, we don't want that to progress. Bring her right over. So I rode her weak, and I said, come get your mule. There's nothing wrong with her. We come got her, and 2 weeks she called me back. Same thing. So I brought her back over, and I said, okay, I'm gonna fix her this time, but before you can take her, you're gonna have to show me how you get on her and ride her. Something you're doing. It's not the mule.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what he was doing, he's getting on the mule perpendicular, and he got sharp pointed toes or boots. He gouged her right in the in the side there with that boot. And pretty soon she thought that was a clue to move away.
Yeah.
And so I taught him to turn a little bit sideways and then get up on your animal so you're not poking her.
Yeah.
And she did fine.
Yeah.
But he was training her, see.
Yeah, he was training her to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say? To me, it seems like there's two kind of mule markets in a way. Like, I guess a vetted mule sale, they're going to get more money for that mule because it's coming from reputable trainers and it's been vetted in some way, like the Jake Clark stuff. Because you can go on. Because you can buy cheap mules anywhere, but they're just not. They've not been proven, I guess. And you got to weed through. Like, I'm trying to understand, like, somebody paying $5,000 for a mule. Like they're. I know why they. I know people with money would do that, but like, it seems like some of these trainers are buying cheap mules and just sell them in a different market and making money. Does that make sense? Or has that happened?
Well, I know what you're getting at, but a good trainer can take a mule that's got a problem and maybe fix it,
Yeah.
Whereas the average person don't have the knowledge or ability to do it. Maybe have the ability, but not the knowledge. But you take a mule, the guy's put 90 or 100 days on and knows what he's doing. Maybe he might have paid $5,000 for the mule to start with. But time he gets it up to the level of $15,000 or somewhere in between, he's put a lot of time, expertise, quality time with that animal.
Yeah.
The only problem with buying those type of mules is that a lot of times sometimes it doesn't stay when they get them home.
Right.
Because this dude's been riding that mule every day that he can for several hours. The more you use them, the better they get,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many mules I've brought home, and they come untrained a little more every day.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these trainers or traders will, like to ride one, put somebody on it and ride it.
Yeah, and so the day after you get it back from that, obviously it's going to do pretty good, but 4 months down the road when you've ridden it 3 times.
Or maybe a week down the road.
Yeah.
But a good example I bought one from a guy here in Arkansas at the time, still is with his trader, and she was a fancy looking mule. Well, I showed her to the World Show in California. She placed third or halted in her class. She was 58 inches. And I bought her for myself. She had a good way of traveling. And I discovered her out there, and he wanted $5,000 for her, so I bought her. And asked him all different questions. And I'd known him wasn't a stranger. But then I realized after I bought her, when she started giving me problems, that I wasn't paying attention, but I saw that mule at different times of the day. Of course, there's lots of people out there. Somebody's always on the track or in the arenas. I saw her time after time with a different rider on her, loping just hour after hour after hour. And so I got her home and was real pleased with her. And I saddled her up, rode her 2 miles down the road and back, and everything's fine. And I did that for about a week, and on about the 5th or 6th ride, I noticed she was kind of act like she wanted to buck something, humped up on me and stuck her ears up, and I thought, this bitch could buck you off. She could buck me off if she wanted to, but next day I told my dad I kept a big 16-hand pony horse here. I said, down here on, take me down the road. We got to the second curve down here, and she just exploded. And the first thing I knew, I was sitting behind the saddle. And so while she was coming down, I grabbed the horn and stuck myself back in the saddle. But then I looked over, and even with the rubber on the horn, how powerful she was. That lead rope that was around the pony horse's saddle horn, up there it went. And so when she come down the next time, I stepped off of her. But I couldn't break her that.
Why was she doing that?
She was a bitch. She just had
She was a super well-trained mule that people had ridden, like just
Well, I would
Just every now and then she would just get that way?
No, she was a mule. She was a young mule. She was just 4 or 5 year old. But she died. I'd say, in my opinion, she was that way from birth. And not many of them are, but she's one of them. Just her natural instinct was to buck.
Mm.
And the more you rode her, the less she did it, certainly. And there you go, is another point. One person can get along with a mule and the next one can't, or vice versa.
Really? There's some truth to that, huh?
The mules are much more of a one-on-one type animal because they're donkeys.
Right.
Half donkey. But I sold that mule to the guy, a friend of mine in Missouri, and told him exactly how she was. And he bought her. And but she bucked with him every time he got on her. He made a roping mule out of her. But she'd buck every time he'd get it on her.
Wow. $5,000 mule that buck.
Mm-hmm. But if she had been right, I could have sold her for 10,
I see. So that's a time when you got where it didn't work out, I guess.
Yeah. That's the way you could do those. You got to evaluate them pretty quickly. Ride them, let somebody else ride them. Usually you don't have but 15 minutes or a half hour. Once in a while, I'll take the time to go on trail ride with one.
Yeah.
Or bring it home and try it out.
Yeah.
But
interesting. Colby, do you have any questions? You've been awfully quiet over there.
Yeah, I'm taking it all in. I want to hear. I was just thinking, if you have one mule that stands out, just some legendary mule that you've had that kind of outclasses the others, like if you would describe them, or maybe a story about something that just showed how good they were.
Well, Clementine, my darling, was my all-time favorite mule for looks and conformation and ability. You have different favorite mules for different things, but overall, if I'd just pick one, it'd be her. She's a once-in-a-lifetime mule, and she was born and raised in California, and she was a nervous, flighty mule, kind of like that Appaloosa that guy had, only worse. And you had to be a rider. She never did buck very much, but she'd run off with you, spook her, and she didn't have much self-preservation. One time this guy bought her from him. I saw him. He was at a big mule show and had great big bleachers. Somebody come by on a flag waving there. Next thing he knew, he was standing up there on his mule, but he was up on the top row.
Wow. And now this is the best mule you ever had, though.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now explain that, because that doesn't make you're not very convincing here.
Well, it's like I was telling this guy the other day that the mule that's like that they never lose it. They're always going to be that way. But then you can work with them and make them better. They can still be a hell of a mule and have that problem,
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't, but you got to understand the problem and figure out how to deal with it. That mule I didn't ride her, but she was easy riding. But anyway, Clemmy was bought as a colt and raised and trained by this California guy, I guess I say. And he did quite well with her, but he never could get that last little bit out of her, and I figured I could, and I did. But she got more broke, and she mellowed out, and I put a lot of time on her. She finally got to the age where she didn't regress, but I had her in all the speed events. The only mule I rode, and I rode a bunch of them, that you could ride her into the arena, circle around and just, as you might say, cock the hammer wide open and just fog it into the barrel, never slow down. Just come out of there scratching and clawing and go to the next barrel. And that's what you got to have if you're going to win. You can't have one start rating you, slowing down before they get there very much.
So she was fast. That's what you liked about her.
And she was very, very athletic. But I won 6 world championships with her.
Mm.
And
Now, halter championships or
a halter, and she had the halter and all the speed events. And then the guy I bought her from was a world champion in team roping
Mm.
and cow working.
Huh.
That's a story.
Now, would she have been a good trail mule just to go out here in the mountains and ride?
Well, she was very rideable. I rode her a few times on the trail, but she wasn't my kind of a trail mule.
Okay.
But cow working made me think. We used to have 100 head of heifers here. We kept and resold, and I worked them all on my mules. And out of a time of having 20 to 30 mules, I'd have 5 all the time that could work cattle.
Yeah.
Most mules don't have enough speed to work a cow. A lot of them have enough speed to just get up even with her. If you've got trying to hit one out going down the fence, but not enough speed to get in front of them and cut them off.
Yeah.
Well, I had this one mule. It was a 14, 2, maybe 3 hand buckskin molly mule we call Ruth. She was about 12 years old when I bought her. And the guy that I bought her from had worked cows with her. And so I fine-tuned her. But anyway, back to my story. They had, at Carthage, Missouri, they had a friendly little competition of steer roping and team pinning. And I found out about it, and they had horses to show, and then they had the mule show. I took Ruth up there, and the horse show was still going on, and they're doing this team pinning, they call for single pinning. And she was the best I'd ever seen at that for me. And so I went up to the owner, the guy's putting it on, sponsoring. I said, "Can I ride a mule in this class?" He said, "Look, buddy, I don't care if you ride a goat, but let's be understood that it's only one money. Everybody just only take the whole pot." So there was 36 entered, and I was the last one to enter. And I don't know if you're familiar with cattle pinning, single pinning, but have all your steers out there, heifers, have a cross line, then you have a pin set up over here. And if you've got 3 riders and you pick out there's 3 steers out there with that same number, you go sort them out, drag them around, put them in the pen.
Mm.
Well, single pinning is the same thing, except they'll put one more panel over there because there's no way you can head them off. Well, you got to be not only good, but you got to be fast, and then you got to be lucky. And lucky in the sense that your animals are usually as quickly accessible. So I take off a dead run, and they blew the whistle. And one of my steers my only steer, single pinning, was right out in the front. Boy, I hooked around that dude and took him up the arena. They're wide open, and put him in there in the pen, 6.7 seconds.
Mm.
I had tied the fastest horse.
Mm.
So the crowd was a huge crowd. They were just loving it.
Mm-hmm.
They were all clapping and hoorahing. And so the announcer said, "Jim, do you want to flip for the pot, or you want to run it off, or you want to split it, or what?" "I'll be damned if I want to split anything with a mule." He was cussing mules. And so he asked me, and I said, "That's fine. We'll run it off. Winner take all." So we got in there, and I drew to go first. And same thing, went down there, and the steer was right in the front. Took him up dead run. He got almost to the pin, and he cut in front of me. I just cut him right back around and put him back there, but it was 13 seconds.
Mm.
Well, I'm thinking, shoot, I lost that deal. Well, he comes in there, and he hits his right off the bat and head up there, and it turns almost in the same spot. But he didn't get around it, and he kind of got away from him. First thing he blew the whistle, he went past my time. Well, he was really mad about it, and so the steer was still out there, and he rode up to that steer and leaned over and grabbed his tail. He was going to twist the steer's tail. And when he did, his saddle turned on him and dumped him right in the dirt.
Oh. Uh-oh.
But it was one of the good
The
stories.
mules won that day.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard for months after that, somebody hadn't seen him on and say, "Hey, did you hear about that cattle penning up there at Carthage? Some mule won that."
You were like, it was a Hawleywoods mule. You mentioned the mule's age. What is how long will a mule, can you functionally ride a mule? Like, will they last longer than a horse?
Certainly. Well, a good example is that there's parimutuel racing, for mules in 6 or 8 or 9 states, 11 out west. And that's when I found out that on parimutuel racetrack, they won't allow a horse to run past the age of 10. Well, when you run the mules parimutuel, it's 16.
Okay.
So that gives you some idea about useful longevity of a mule.
It's longer.
They last a lot longer. We didn't touch on it, but some more advantages to having a mule is that they don't eat as much. They're not as selective in what they eat. They'll eat about anything.
Yeah.
And do well on it. They'll do better flesh-wise with less food and poorer quality than a horse will.
Yes.
Donkey side again.
Yeah.
And they're more disease resistant. They can stand more riding injured than a horse will.
Okay.
And there's just a lot of things like that you don't think about.
Could you ride like Colby's got we both have a mule that's about 15. How much longer will we be riding those mules seriously?
Oh, easy to the 25.
Okay.
I got a mule out there now that's bona fide 38 years old.
Really?
And she's not like she used to be, but if you take care of them, see, one of the problems is if any of those horses gets older is their teeth. And most people don't float their animals' teeth because they don't think you need it and never heard of it, some of them. But that causes a lot of problems. If it gets out of whack, a tooth gets loose or it gets a point on it where it makes it sore, and you're trying to make them turn right, and when they turn right, it punches them in the chin. They don't want to do it. So it's advantageous to have your mules floated, especially after they start getting to be 8 or 10 years old.
Okay.
And then when they get real old, if you haven't floated them on a regular basis before then, they start getting a little loose, and then they don't match up, uppers and lowers. I never did have a professional float their teeth all the time, but discovered this one mule had an upper tooth that was literally an inch longer, sticking down in his gum over on this side. It caused him pain when he closed his mouth, or you'd pull a bit of pressure against it.
Yeah.
So they cut it off with a pair of nippers.
Huh.
Floating wasn't going to do any good.
Now, what does floating actually mean? They're pulling a tooth out?
No, float them is where you have a kind of a rasp, so to speak, about so big on the handle, and you rub it up and down on their teeth till you get them even.
Okay.
If they're chewing something and the teeth don't come together, just your eye have the same problem.
Yeah.
You start getting the horse, or if you're feeding them in this box stall or in a pan where they're by themselves and you got some age on them, you'll notice you have some hay in a trough.
I see.
That he's chewed, but he didn't swallow and he spit it back up.
Yeah.
That's a good sign that they need the teeth work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, there was that everything you said is been really good, informative, and yeah. Colby, can you think of, you got any final question? I mean, there's 1,000. There's other things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
But we've covered the big things. I wanted to hear about the mule business and what Mr. Lloyd was doing all those years selling, which we covered that. We covered I learned some stuff about why you'd want a mule over a horse.
Another thing I would like to point out is that most people, particularly women, do not want to be dominant over their animals. They just want to be equal.
I see.
And in lots of animals, not just mules, but you have a pecking order. You cannot be equal. You either got to be above or below in the pecking order.
Yeah.
So that's one reason some people do or do not get along with their animals. Kind of goes back to the idea of what I said earlier, where most people do a lot with their mules, but they've never made them do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for meeting with us today.
Yeah.
I want to go out here and see some of your mules that you've got. And me and Colby want to come over here and ride with you.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
All right. Thank you. Well, we always end our podcast by saying, keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
Yep.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some meat eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.